Isaiah 53 is such an interesting passage because it's so hard in
Mm.
Hebrew.
Hmm.
it's so
It
it's
is. It is.
it's so and people, I mean, you obviously there's like reasons why
Yeah.
it's been very influential and stuff. But it's just not an easy text.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was that easy for our translator
No.
either.
No. There's some idiosyncrasies in the translation, for sure, and there's some differences between the MT and some of the Dead Sea Scrolls as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at like modern commentaries on this, the number of emendations that are proposed and all this kind of stuff, it's just a hornet's nest of issues.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. So the text at the end of 53:11,
Hmm.
Yatzdik Tzadik Avdi Le Rabim. Yeah, I don't even want to translate it
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
I would give away, I
yeah.
I would have to translate it. I would have to like put it my thoughts out there. So, which I'm not even sure of. What is the theological significance of this translation? I mean, okay, so I should say most translations, I think like the ESV, for example, would probably say something like, the righteous one, my servant will make the many righteous, or
Hmm.
something like that, or
Hmm.
justify the many.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I'm forgetting how English translations do it,
Sounds
but
about, yeah, it sounds
something
right.
like that. So what does the old Greek translator do with this, and why does it matter?
Yeah, the old Greek. So the with the first Hifil, I
So that's
think,
Yatzdik.
yeah, Yatstik, the translator has kind of made a decision to take a number of third person singular verbs and make them a series of infinitives that kind of go back to that first phrase about what did the Lord desired. Hold on, I have my text in front of me. Let me grab it real quick. Yeah, the Lord desired to, well, cleanse him of the blow or something like that is literally in the Greek. And there's this conditional phrase which is kind of interesting. If you plural give a sin offering, so it's like his group that repents in light of the what the servant's done. And then there's a series of, oh yeah, sorry, another infinitive. The Lord desired to remove this from him. And then there's a series of infinitives. So
So what verse is this?
this is now verse 11. Yeah.
Okay.
So it picks up a series of infinitives where if you look in the Hebrew text, they appear to be third person singulars, but the Greek translator has made it basically allows God to continue as the subject of these actions rather than this servant figure. So we have here in the Greek, we have dikaosai. So we have the infinitive and then dikaion. So it goes infinitive, and then rather than having yatstik as a either kind of, yeah, just the subject of the sentence, right, the righteous one, or however you take that with the servant, now we have dikaon, so that is the direct object of the infinitive. So now we have he justified the righteous one. And then I think the translator reads, instead of reading my servant, if you don't read or maybe if you read it, but read it as something else, you can read it as kind of a participle. I think Symmachus also reads it that way, but uses a different verb of serving. And so he reads that as a participle with this little adverb, flavoring adverb, "o." So serving the many well. So now we've got a construction where God righteouses, justifies the righteous one who served the many well. So it's about vindication of the servant figure in the Greek text.
So
Which,
go ahead.
yeah, no, I say that idea of vindication of the servant figure, I think, does make good sense. You could argue Daniel 12 maybe one of the earliest interpretations of Isaiah 53, and there the wise ones, the masculine, are justified or are made. Yeah, there's that kind of idea, at least. Yeah, it's a very interesting text. I think Martin Hengel says this is like the seedbed of the idea that through the resurrection God justified Jesus the Messiah. That was his suggestion, at least.
So the significance of this, right, is, I mean, I think from a Greek Hebrew perspective, in Hebrew it is quite unclear. Like, people have argued what is the object for example.
Mhm.
That is a big problem in the text. And most of the English translations take le rabim to be the object, which I think is like totally untenable.
Yeah.
Because Yatstik just doesn't take le
Yeah.
as an argument. But
You
anyway,
you have a question about who the many are in that
yep.
context,
Who
right?
are the
Because
many?
the many could be like the adversaries in front of whom the righteous one is vindicated or something like that.
Right. Right. So the issue is that, you know, we don't like, there are some things in the Hebrew that are kind of in question, right? I mean, so in I was just looking up the ESV translation here. It says, you know, by his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous. So that, again, make many to be accounted righteous, I'm arguing is really not right. I don't think you can get there with the Hebrew. But the old Greek, so the old Greek doesn't say that. But it, like, Greek forces you to make a decision on the syntax with how you translate, right? Whereas Hebrew does not, right? Because Hebrew doesn't have a necessary accusative case. And because of that, you can read avdi one way or the other. You can read tzaddik, you know, as a subject or an object. And all of these different proposals have been given, but the Greek, you know, translator says, okay, no, it's dikaiosai dikaion, right? It is to justify the dikaion, the righteous one. So and that is indisputable according to the Greek, right? You can't get around that. So it's what's very interesting about that, right? Then is, if New Testament authors are reading the Septuagint or some early version of it, you know, they can pick up on this idea. And, you know, again, what they're doing with this, I mean, it's hard to say, but
it makes sense at like the end of Romans 4, for example, or you know, in is it First Timothy? I think there's a text in First Timothy as well.
Yeah. No. So and obviously we know that this text was influential, right, within early Christian circles. So, you know, I mean, that it's a very interesting way to go back and see, okay, how were the New Testament authors influenced by, you know, the Greek version of this text? Again, it doesn't even necessarily mean that the Greek translator was right.
Right.
But
and the Greek text itself has all kinds of questions as well, which is really interesting too.
Right.
And one thing I've noticed that's maybe be interesting to some people, you want to be cautious of this. I've even found a lot of biblical scholars will do this kind of conflated thing where they take elements of the Old Greek and elements of the Masoretic text and do like theology from that. So it's like a combined text of Isaiah that no one had access to that we know of. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So these are, you know, obviously really difficult syntactic questions, but I mean, it shows the value of just reading the Septuagint for itself. You know, if you just actually just read the Septuagint, and again, it's very unclear who in the early church is reading what. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Paul is definitely reading the Septuagint. You know, how much he's reading the Hebrew is debated. But if he was just reading the Septuagint, like on this passage, then he is going to, you know, have a limited set of options for how he interprets it. That's different than the set of options for the Hebrew version, right?
Yes.
I think that's the key kind of point.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.